Let's do another late to the party review. I'm getting good at these. With the launch of the new Sokito Scudetta, I'm going to review the Sokito Devista Vegan, which is their first generation of football boots, just the vegan variety, not the leather variety. So Sokito haven't all of a sudden changed their business plan. They have always been based on this idea of creating a sustainable football boot. This one being made of over 50% bio and recycled materials, which is quite simply fantastic. And I also want to give an early shout out that for Sokito, this applies to the new Scudetta as well. You can take an old pair of boots, maybe a pair that you've worn through, you can send them to Sokito and they will give you 20 euros off. I think it's 20 euros off your next purchase from them. So you recycle a pair of boots, they take those boots and they basically break them down into different parts in Italy, have them recycled, and you get discount of buying a brand new pair of boots. It's the closest thing we have right now to trying to generate some kind of circular environmental economy within football boots. And irrespective of what I will say about these boots, they're still good. I'm going to say nice things, but irrespective, the fact that they have gone down this environmental sustainability route when huge brands have been completely unable or unwilling to do this, I think speaks volumes of the company, and it is a company that seemingly has an ethos and morals that I am more than happy to support. Firstly, let's jump into the sizing. With this Devista Vegan, you need to go up half a size. I don't really have any other way of putting that other than go up half a size. The toe box, as you can see, is incredibly low profile. It's an incredibly small toe box, and I've tried these in my normal size, which would be a US 8. I just simply could not wear them. I had to go up half a size. There's no real negotiation with that. I'm telling you, go up half a size. Width-wise, these are going to suit a lot of people with a wider midfoot for sure. Part of that is because they have a traditional tongue, so you've got a U-throat tongue construction there, which means you've got an awful lot of adjustability, and the width is generally pretty good. Again, be aware of that really low toe box though, right on the end, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue if you do go up that half size. Using my new binary rating system, we are going to give the fit an up. There is no major issues, no problems. So despite having to go up half a size, we're going to give the fit an up. We'll move on to the upper, where you can see you have this really beautifully soft synthetic leather material. Now, there are companies out there that I shall remain nameless right now, Puma, who have failed to create a synthetic leather that is as convincing as this. Now, don't get me wrong, you can absolutely still tell that this is not a leather boot, but it is certainly a lot closer than a lot of other synthetics, and just how beautifully soft it is something that I am willing to forgive its like maybe not being completely like leather, because it just molds and is really, really beautiful, especially in this 4-foot vamp. The midfoot is made of the same material, but with a little bit thicker, so that it's there to add a little bit of structure. Now, what that does mean is that the boot is not super structured through this midfoot area, which means you don't get the greatest amount of responsiveness from the upper as a whole. But considering if you were to look at this boot and you're looking at it and thinking, well, this is a more classic style boot, it actually excels in that particular area. But for the overall softness of the upper, it has a really nice touch on the ball. It feels elegant, feels classy. It's padded without being overly thick. It definitely takes away some of the sting, and you are definitely leaning towards that more classic leather vibe, but you still have a good amount of feeling with the ball. It's quite a nice balance for a modern leather synthetic, which is of course helped by the stitching, which is there for structure, but it also creates an almost slightly pillowy effect with your touch. Really like it overall, and the upper is definitely getting an up. Okay, let's talk about the lockdown, which again is pretty good. I don't have any major complaints, and I'm pretty impressed with the way that the lacing system works, that I don't have really a large amount of flaring that comes here. The whole boot does tighten in quite nicely around the foot. No real complaints. And again, for a boot of this style with this amount of width and a U-throat tongue, the lockdown is surprisingly good. And I think a good amount of that comes down to the actual materials they've used for the liner. There's this synthetic suede, which I'll try and show you, that runs through the back third of the boot, all the way from here, all the way around the heel, and all the way through here. And on the whole, it just gives you a really nice feeling of you're not going anywhere. You don't feel like you're going to start slipping and sliding around the boot, and I never felt like I was going to slip up out the back of the heel. Now, I did have a little bit of a pressure point around the back of the heel here. I think the heel counter itself could be improved. I can't quite pinpoint what it is. It does seem to be deep enough. It's potentially just my heel shape, but maybe just maybe some more narrowing or some more padding through the back here. You can see it's a reasonably wide heel shape. I think could have given me a little bit of a better fit and maybe taken away some of that pressure. It's one of the only complaints that I do have of the boot. But the laces I want to mention, actually, like not necessarily these, any laces, they lock in quite nicely. There's something about the way the material is designed, and again, it could be because of this synthetic material that's on the inside. They do a really good job of actually locking in place and not sliding and coming undone easily, which helps that lockdown. So again, for a boot of this particular style, we're going to give the lockdown a no. We can't be too positive, so we are going to find a down in the Sokito, and it's going to be the insole. I don't particularly love it. It's been made from a recycled material, which is great, but it's very flimsy. It offers very little structure. The padding itself is fine. I just don't think it is particularly great, and the top layer on the top of this insole could definitely be better if they could incorporate maybe something like the synthetic suede that's through the back of the boot. I don't love this insole, and that is definitely getting a down. Let's take a look at the outsole, which is this very traditional looking outsole. So it's all conical studs. It's what you'd expect from a classic leather boot, which is definitely the direction that Sokito went with this release, this first release, a classic styled leather, or in this case, synthetic leather boot. I do think they've done an exceptional job. However, what they've done in certain areas is they've modernized it. And the best way to view that is with the sole plate itself, because it is really nice and stable through the midfoot and the heel. And I absolutely love that. It makes the whole thing feel a lot more responsive, and it helps that, obviously, like I say, the upper isn't super responsive. So the outsole being that bit more responsive does help. And then if you were to look at this, setup, this conical stud, you would not expect this level of stiffness and spring back from the boot. Now, you could argue that it doesn't fit the style of the boot, but it modernizes it quite nicely, and I really like this. I think it's an excellent little addition, and it just makes the whole boot feel that little bit more modern, that little bit faster, that little bit more nimble, and I just think it's excellent. I think because of the length of the studs and having that particular amount of spring back with the responsiveness from the outsole, I think this is an excellent option for an AG pitch. Now, there's not tons of studs here, so they're not going to start to dissipate pressure a lot, and the studs in the rear are not on the longer side, but they're longer than the rest of them. So obviously be a little careful, and I would say definitely use a nicer AG pitch, but I've been using this in AG and I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I really love how that works. So outsole is a huge positive for me. You could ask for more aggressive studs, but not for a boot of this particular style. I think it's really nice, and it provides an interesting balance of this modern leather or synthetic leather boot. I think they've done a great job. I do want to throw an additional up in there for the eco-friendly nature of the boot, and I think if you are looking for something that is super affordable, if they still have your size available in this particular boot, it's well worth going out and getting. It's far superior to what you're going to get from a lot of takedown models right now, which are running far more expensive prices than these on sale. However, with the Scudetta coming out and that seem to be a big leap forward in Sokito's tech and what they've done. Personally, I'm definitely grabbing a pair of those, and it might be worth you checking them out as well. But we'll have to wait and see what I think when my pair arrive. By the time this comes out, there should also be a video on the channel of us on the Football Boot Hour podcast chatting with one of the designers of the Scudetta. So I'd strongly recommend checking that out. And when it's available, I'll link it right here.
Been more about stages, you know, because at the beginning we had like wooden outsole that we couldn't test on the ground because you step on it and you crack it. So it was like several months of doing those tests.